I think that, the more this gets talked up, the better. It's a real opportunity for Celtic. You want the fans turning up at Parkhead and taking the noise levels up to 11. You want that crackling electricity in the night sky under the lights. You want young boys who are absolutely scunnered with this competition to think this is something we could do without here. There's nothing for them to play for. You just want it to be hostile, noisy, in your face, and hopefully that's like an adrenaline shot to the Celtic side that have been looking a bit leggy, look as if they've kind of come through as they have done a real heavy fixture list. But you're just hoping that the return to Europe, this massive opportunity, just ignites the whole thing, lights a fire under it. And I genuinely think if that's the case and Celtic approach the game as I fully expect them to, right on the front foot, early doors, getting, really setting a tempo, I think they'll win, and I think they'll win comfortably, and I think it'll be a great night.
Swanee, as Keith says, look, if Celtic were handpicking an opponent, it would be young boys. I know you've been at a fair few of the European games this season. I mean, do you share Keith's optimism that they will get the job done?
Yeah, I think Celtic have been good in the Champions League this season in a variety of ways. Barring Dortmund, obviously. The first game they were expansive, confident, and outplayed, hammered Bratislava. The Leipzig game is as good a Celtic performance at that level as we've seen, maybe, in terms of actual football. And then Bruges was completely different, where, listen, I know it was a wee while ago, but we talked about it prior to the game. People getting a wee bit carried away and turning up expecting Bruges just to be swatted in a Leipzig style. And they were good, Bruges. And they put in Celtic, didn't hit their levels, and they were asked some serious questions. And I think what was impressive that night was the way they didn't fold, they didn't go under when they were in big trouble. And they managed to dig themselves out and get. So they've actually found different ways to get results. I mean, nobody would have thought at the beginning of the season, nobody would have thought walking away from the Dortmund game that they could produce the type of performance they did in Bergamo to dig in and get the points. So they've found different ways to win, but it's get results. But as Keith suggests, it's maybe going back to the start here, the sort of swagger that they took into the Bratislava game, and take that into the game. I get the feeling with Celtic, pretty much since I was in Zagreb, the minute that everybody walked out of the stadium that night, there was a big circle around this night. And Celtic have had very important things to deal with, a cup final against Rangers and league games, and you have to make sure you keep doing the business. But it almost felt like, in some ways, box ticking, right? You just got to deal with this bread and butter, just deal with it almost as if this is where the season reignites. This is the night where they've been sort of building towards. And just listening to those comments from Arne Engels today, that would suggest that they're ready to kind of explode back into it. And I just hope they do. I hope it's not they don't take, stage fright's the wrong word, but if there's any nervousness about them, I hope they do go in with that swagger. I would take issue with what Keith says about young boys having nothing to play for. I do understand the situation in the Champions League, but they've just appointed a new manager.
Yeah, I know, but they're all over the shop, Swanee. The results domestically.
Yeah, and that was another terrible result of the weekend, drawn at home in his first game against a team right down, could even be at the bottom of the table, I think. So they'll have players with points to prove to the manager, and if not in terms of qualification. But listen, I would agree with you. I would agree with both of you when you say if you could have picked one team to be playing at home, this would have been the game you would have picked. So Celtic, they'll go in with that swagger.
I think they will, Swanee. I tell you, and I think
Slava game, and I do think Keith. I do think they'll be building it. I do think they're building back up towards that. Maida back in, Kuhn back in after missing games. Kyogo looking alive again. I think they're building to it.
Yeah, I see. When you're right, Swanee, when you say that they've found different ways of accumulating 9 points so far in this campaign, and I think Brendan Rodgers, and he'll hate me for saying it, but showed a pragmatic side after Dortmund. That he, despite saying that he would never change, he did change. He tightened things up, certainly in the centre of midfield. He made Celtic more difficult to play through. It was everything that Celtic have been crying out for so long. And I think there's been glimpses of that again, Zagreb away. I know that some people thought Zagreb away was a missed opportunity. Maybe it was, but I'm always pleased to see a Scottish side getting a result, even as a point away from home on the road in Europe, particularly the Champions League, is good. But I feel, Swanee, that he will take the same approach that he wanted to take to Dortmund. he'll take it into this one at home to Young Boys. The same approach that he had with the Bratislava game.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it will be very reminiscent and based upon what you're used to seeing Celtic do domestically in terms of the way the team will be set up. I don't think he'll be overly cautious on this. I don't think there'll be a handbrake on. And I think it'll be, the chat before the game will just be, this is an opportunity to go out there and seize it, boys.
I also think, Keith, that in the last couple of games, I've noted a maturity in the way they've gone about things. The reason I say that is the Bruges game 2 games ago, when Dyson Maeda equalised from a game where Celtic were really, really under the pump. Bruges were excellent in the first half. And Celtic got themselves level. But I didn't feel with 15 minutes to go there was the cavalry charge to go win it. You almost sensed that the players realised themselves, we might adopt one here. Let's make sure that was it Lazio last season where they got sucker punched right at the
end,
chasing to win a game and ended up getting sucker punched and lost it. And I also think, to your point from Zagreb, yes, I understand that, Keith. A lot of people did think it was a chance missed. Being at the game, I mean, the local guys and the Croatian boys that were there were saying, oh, basically the whole team's missing and there's youth players and Celtic should be running right here. But I also thought with 20 minutes to go in that game that they kind of thought, okay, let's not go nuts here. A point away from home is fine for the end objective. And I just thought that was a kind of maturity that you're starting to see seep into the team, which is a very good signing. Yeah. But like I do think that maturity will allow them to then go in with some confidence on Wednesday to know that there's nothing to be frightful of here. We're all right here. We can go play in the front foot and we'll be okay. And if something goes wrong early in the game, we've shown against Leipzig, we know how to deal with it. See, we can go a goal down and we don't panic. We can get ourselves back in it.
See as well, Keith, I think it's worth making the point. I mean, you mentioned Swanee, Bruges at home. Bruges got to the semi-final of the Conference League last season, the quarter-final of the Champions League 2 seasons ago. I mean, this is a serious outfit, and Zagreb away from home, as you say, Swanee, like any point away from home in the Champions League, you can't turn your nose up at it. I mean, D-Man says here in the comments, if Celtic get a result tomorrow, 1 loss at 7 Champions League matches, I mean, that underlines the progress that Brendan Rodgers has made this season, I think. I mean, that's a really good record. Yeah,
and listen, people get annoyed when other people talk about the changes in the competition, and it is slightly different. You know, you don't have say a top seed like a Real Madrid that you may have played twice by now, and you're struggling to get a point. Everybody gets that, but it's not like you're getting into some tadpole league of Europe. You know, you're still playing good teams, as you've just pointed out about Bruges. And I remember thinking specifically prior to that game. Again, I reference it once more. We spoke about it a lot before the game because Celtic played so well against Zagreb. They just expected to turn up and obliterate Bruges, and it wasn't never going to happen. And I don't think the players thought that for any minute, but if they did, within about 5 minutes of the game, they had the shock of their lives because Bruges were basically keeping the ball for fun, and Celtic couldn't keep it. So you realise pretty quickly that every game's dangerous. And listen, young boys will have players in there that can cause a problem if Celtic don't do their jobs properly. If Celtic do their jobs properly, you would expect them to step onto the game and win it well, and that's what everybody's hoping for.